My husband was away, so I cheated on him. He took revenge and brought me to the streets. Literally.
I've made a very big mistake, guys. I don't even know where the mistakes began. I've destroyed my once happy marriage because of my lustful desires. I don't even know how I got here. Everything was at the verge of being lost. Everything happened so fast, and I'm so ashamed of myself right now. I've done something so despicable. I can't even look myself in the mirror right now, and I don't think I will ever be able to forgive myself for having an affair with my husband's friend. I blame myself for everything. I got so carried away by my lust that I couldn't even control myself. What should I do now? I'm so confused and lost. Hi guys, my name is Anita, and I'm a 30-year-old fashion designer. I have been a fashion designer since I was 16 years old, but not professionally though. I learned the basics of fashion designing from my mom. She was also a fashion designer. I have been a professional fashion designer for 10 years now. I'm married to a medical doctor. His name is Derek, and he is 32 years old. We live in Rochester, New York, USA. Derek and I have been married for 5 years now. Derek is one of the best things that has happened to me. He is my soulmate and the absolute love of my life. Derek and I met in college, and ever since then, we have been inseparable. Everyone thinks I married Derek because of his money, but that's not true. I won't blame them for thinking that way because physically Derek is not handsome and is below average height, but all these things don't matter to me. The quality that attracted me to Derek is his caring nature. I can boldly say without mincing any words that Derek loves me more than he loves himself, and he provides everything I ask of him and even more. He can go to any length to see me happy. Our relationship started having some challenges ever since Derek was transferred to a neighboring town 6 months ago. He asked if we could relocate together, but I told him it was not possible. I used my fashion designing business as an excuse, but that was not the reason. Derek volunteered to work for an NGO, and he was sent to a remote town for 2 years. I couldn't imagine going to start life all over again in another place, and it was a remote town. So I told him I would have loved to go but couldn't because of my business. He understood my reasons, but I could tell he was disappointed from the look on his face. He promised to be visiting once every month, and he asked if that's okay by me, and I said yes. I didn't know being away from each other would cause a huge gap in our marriage. The distance became an issue, and even communication became hard because Derek was always busy. But he still made time for us to communicate once in a while. Derek made sure we communicated at least 3 times daily, and we did video calls daily. Derek made sure he kept his promises by visiting at least once every month. I started getting bored of everything over time, even though Derek was my best friend and we did practically everything together. It was just hard for me to cope by myself. I was lonely and needed someone by my side. One day, on my way home from the grocery store, a car suddenly came to a stop and the person in the car approached me where I was standing. His face looked familiar, but I could not place where I had met him before. He introduced himself as Nathan, Derek's friend, and I immediately remembered him. He was one of Derek's groomsmen at our wedding. He asked about Derek, and I told him Derek had been away for his NGO work for about 6 months. He offered to drop me at home because my car was faulty and was with the mechanic. I was reluctant at first, but he insisted, so I obliged. The ride home was so fun that I didn't even know when we arrived at my gate. He offered to help me carry my groceries inside, and I accepted. He came in and even helped me arrange my groceries. I offered him a cup of coffee and we continued gisting. Nathan is handsome and he is very fun to be with. He is 6 feet tall and he can pass for a model. He wanted to go, but I begged him to stay a little since there was still time. We decided to have a glass of wine and watch a movie together. That was all I can remember, guys. Nothing prepared me for what happened next. The next morning, I woke up to see Nathan on my matrimonial bed. You guys are shocked, right? So was I. I can't even remember anything that happened, but one thing was certain. I had slept with my husband's friend, and I didn't even know how it happened. I was devastated, but Nathan behaved as if nothing had happened. I was panicking while he was calm. He told me to relax and that it was normal, and I wouldn't be the first person to sleep with my husband's friend. He categorically told me he didn't take advantage of me and that I consented to everything that happened. Well, I was too drunk to remember anything that happened, but he offered to make breakfast for me. I asked him to leave immediately, but he refused. He insisted on making breakfast for me. I was still hungover from the previous night, so there was not much I could do. I didn't know what to do. I felt bad. I'm not proud of what I did. Derek didn't deserve it. I don't even know what came over me all of a sudden. How could I let myself stoop so low to have an affair with my husband's friend? I asked myself that a lot because I didn't think Derek would ever forgive me for what I did. What he feared the most had happened. Derek has trust issues because of his past relationships. He always told me ladies come around him because of his money and end up cheating on him. I assured him that I'm different and that I would never do that to him. Initially, Derek doubted my love for him. He couldn't understand why I was him if not for his money, but slowly I gained his trust. I made him understand that there's more to a person than just looks, and I made see himself in another light. I can't believe I have broken that trust. How do I convince Derek that I got carried away? I know he would think I'm just like the rest of his exes. I was so scared because I knew how wrong I'd been. I was still thinking of what to do when Nathan walked in with a food tray in his hand. I was furious, but I couldn't bring myself to ask him to leave. He offered me breakfast, and I ate. He consoled me and told me everything would be fine. I feel so bad right now because even though I could have stopped, I kept making the wrong choices. My affair with Nathan continued and knew what I was doing was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to stop. Nathan and I became so close that he moved in with me. Derek could no longer visit once in a month like he used to because he became very busy with work, but he made sure we still communicate every day. Whenever he called, Nathan would excuse me so I would be comfortable talking to Derek. It felt weird at first, but with time, I got used to it. One day I got a call from Derek. He told me he had a surprise for me. I thought he had sent a package for me as usual, but I was wrong. He asked me to open the door, and I hurriedly ran towards the door, but nothing prepared me for the shock I experienced when I opened the door and saw Derek. I froze for seconds, and he had to tap me to bring me back to reality. He could tell I wasn't thrilled to see him. He asked why I wasn't happy seeing him, and I knew I would get caught if I didn't act fast, so I had to come up with something. I wanted to lie about being sick, but I remembered Derek was a medical doctor and I couldn't get away with it. So I had to come up with something else. I lied to him that I was having menstrual cramps. He knew how bad my cramps were. So he asked me to take a rest and just relax. Everything was going well, and I was so lost enjoying the pampering I was getting from Derek that I didn't have time to think about the mess I was in. Nothing prepared me for what happened next. Derek went upstairs to change his clothes and stumbled on Nathan's things in his closet. From clothes to singlets and boxers. He was furious, and I could hear it from the way he spoke to me. At that moment, I wanted the ground to open so I could just disappear. I knew that could be the end for me. I wanted to confess, but I knew that Derek would not forgive me if I confessed to him that I was having an affair with his friend. I didn't confess to Derek, and I didn't get caught. I lied to Derek when he asked me about the things he saw in his closet. I told him those things belonged to my brother. I told him my brother was in town for work. He asked why I never mentioned it to him, considering the fact that we spoke every day, but I told him it must have skipped my mind. He asked why my brother's things were in his closet, and at that moment, I knew he was not buying my lies and he wasn't going to back down. I told him my brother had been busy with work, so I was just helping him to do his laundry. From the look he had on his face, I could tell he didn't believe every single thing I was told. I even had tears on my face and accused him of not trusting me. I'm so ashamed of myself, and I can't believe I stopped that low. He wiped my tears and apologized to me. He never mentioned anything about that matter again. I quickly ran out and called Nathan not to come back that Derek was back. I was thankful that Nathan was not at home when Derek returned. I thought it was the universe working in my favor. All through the time Derek was around, I was pretending to be happy, but the truth was that I was dying with guilt. Seeing Derek reminded me why I got married to him and why I rejected a lot of proposals just to be with him. I think it was at that point I knew the gravity of what I had done. Here is a man that can do absolutely anything for me. A man that went against his family just to be with me. A man that made sure he provided everything I ever asked of. He was the man that stood by me when everyone called me a gold digger, the very man that changed my life. How did I even bring myself to have an affair with his friend? I was so disconnected from everything. I'm just very tired. Update. Derek noticed I was not myself and asked me countless times what was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. I was scared of what the outcome would be. I felt bad for betraying him. It wasn't a conscious decision, but how do I explain to him that it was loneliness that pushed me into the arms of his friend? Don't get me wrong, guys. I take 100% accountability for everything that happened, but I wouldn't have slept with Nathan if Derek hadn't been transferred. I could tell Derek was beginning to suspect me when I saw him snooping on our CCTV camera, but thank goodness I was smart enough to deactivate it anytime Nathan was around. Derek monitored every one of my steps, and he went as far as checking my phone, but I had deleted all my call logs and messages, which even raised his suspicion. I guess he was only looking for evidence before he could say something. He became more agitated when my brother never returned. You guys remember I lied to him about my brother being in town, right? I had to cover up with another lie. I told him my brother was called for work, urgently, in another town. Before Derek went back, he told me he would be resigning and he is planning on opening his own clinic, so he would stop traveling, and we could start a family. Derek and I had always wanted kids, but because of the nature of his volunteer job with the NGO, we couldn't have kids because he was always not around. We decided we would have kids when he was more stable, because he always told me he wanted to be part of our kids' lives. It was mixed feelings for me. On one hand, I was happy we could finally have kids. On the other side, I was sad about my affair with Nathan. Would Derek still have kids with me when he finds out I slept with his friend? I know he wouldn't. I know the man I married has an unforgiving spirit. He never forgave any of his ex-girlfriends that cheated on him. What more about me, his own wife? I knew how hard it was for Derek to finally be able to trust me, and it took a lot of work to get here. I can't believe I messed up everything. Derek went back to officially resign, and I decided to finally end things with Nathan. I decided to meet with Nathan outside my house, but I remembered some of his things were still in my house, so I called him over to break up with him officially. I told him it was over and that I couldn't continue seeing him. He demanded to know the reason for the sudden change of attitude, but I told him it was not his business and that he should get his things and get out. Nathan started packing his things when he saw my mind was made up, and he told me I would regret my actions one day and come back begging. I told him that day would never come. While we were having the back and forth, my phone rang and grabbed it to see who was calling. When I checked, Derek was the one calling. My heart literally jumped out of my chest. I signaled Nathan to excuse me, and he did. I picked the call, and Derek said he was only calling to check up on me and to tell me he had resigned. I was happy, and we continued talking. For a second, I forgot Nathan was still around. While I was still on the phone speaking with Derek, Nathan walked in and informed me with a very loud and angry voice that he had packed up his belongings and he was living. At that moment, I literally died. I guess he thought I was done with the phone call, because Derek and I don't usually speak for long because he is always busy with work. I was praying and hoping that Derek didn't hear what Nathan said, but unfortunately, my hope was dashed when Derek asked what Nathan was doing in our house. How could he identify the voice? I thought they were just casual friends. I forgot to tell you guys one thing about Derek. He never forgets a face or voice. That's one of his traits. I was trying to comprehend everything when he asked me for the second time what Nathan was doing in our home. I was too stunned to speak. I never knew I would get caught, at least not like that, and not when I just ended things with Nathan. I couldn't come up with a lie any longer, and my brain was blank. He told me he knew I was lying when I told him the clothes in his closet belonged to my brother, and that he even got more suspicious when he discovered that I disabled the CCTV camera. He said he knew I was cheating, but what he didn't know was that I was cheating with his friend. At that moment, I couldn't control my tears any longer. He asked me to leave his house before he got back. I couldn't believe what was happening to me, and it felt like my whole world had been shattered. I couldn't bring myself to leave Derek's house. I mean, where would I have gone from there? I knew there was no way I could go back to my parents' house. What would I tell them happened in the first place? I decided to forget all the consequences and wait for Derek. I thought he might forgive me when he found out it was loneliness that pushed me to cheat on him with his friend. But I was wrong. Derek was very furious when he arrived. I have never seen it that way before. He was even more furious when he saw me. He asked me what I was still doing in the house and threatened to call the police and tell them I was trespassing. All my pleading went on deaf ears. He asked me to take everything I came with to his house 5 years ago, and that I shouldn't take anything he bought for me, be it slippers or even hairpins. I went on my knees and started pleading. I begged him to forgive me and give us a second chance, but he was adamant about me leaving, and he didn't listen to everything I said. He promised to make life difficult for me. I tried everything I could, but Derek refused to listen. Worst of all was that I couldn't even call anyone to beg on my behalf because I would have to explain everything to them. I knew no one would understand my plight, not even my friends. They always told me how lucky I was to be married to such a loving, kind, and generous man. Derek made sure I lacked nothing all through our marriage. Money was never my problem. When I saw how adamant Derek was, I picked a few of my things and left, not knowing that was the last time I would step foot in our matrimonial home. I went to crash at my fashion store while I was hoping to squash things out with Derek the following day. I closed down the store temporarily and sent my workers away. I'm still trying to get my thoughts together and find out what to do. I need my husband back in my life. Update: it is still a mystery to me how my life changed in a twinkle of an eye. I mean, how did I go from living in a luxurious mansion to now squatting in my store? Everything happened so fast it didn't make sense. It all felt like a dream, and I wanted to wake up from the nightmare so bad. After days of sleeping at my fashion store, I cried a lot when I realized what my life had become. I got so caught up in my thoughts that I didn't even know when I slept off the next day. I was woken up by the sound of my phone ringing, and it was our lawyer calling. He said he wanted to see me, and I asked him to come to the store. I got the biggest shock of my life when our lawyer arrived with divorce papers. I couldn't believe my eyes. He asked me to sign the divorce papers, but I refused. I tried calling Derek, but I discovered he had blocked my line from reaching him. I decided to go see him at the house, but while I was preparing to go, some group of people arrived at the store, and the lawyer introduced them to me as the new owners of the store. I was flabbergasted, and it took all the little strength left in me for me to keep standing. Apparently, Derek sold my store and gave the proceeds to charity. I couldn't believe my ears, guys. Why would Derek do this to me? I never believed he was capable of such a dubious thing. I know he was the one that opened the store for me with his money after we got married, but I was the one that worked hard to make it what it is now. How can he just throw away my hard work? His name was on the ownership documents, but I never imagined us getting divorced. The new owners of my store gave me 24 hours to vacate the store. I was grateful because 24 hours was more than enough for me, because I thought I could make Derek forgive me and change his mind. I left the store for Derek's place, but I got another shock of my life again. Derek had sold our house and I was not allowed in. It was at that point I knew I had lost everything. I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself anymore, because I knew Derek had made up his mind to frustrate me. I tried calling him several times, but it never went through. I signed the divorce papers and decided to move on with my life. I left the store and decided to move to a hotel. I got another shock when my card was declined. Apparently, Derek has striked again. This time, he wiped everything from our joint account because we operated a joint account together. I was the one that suggested the idea because Derek earned more and it made me have access to his money and could go shopping anytime I wanted. I faced the biggest embarrassment of my life that day, and the hotel receptionist wanted to make a scene. I had to leave before things escalated. Here I am, guys. Homeless, divorced, and penniless. I can only get the alimony when the divorce is finalized. It dawned on me at that moment that my life was over. I used my hands to ruin my life. With all hope being lost and me not having anywhere to go, I decided to contact Nathan. At first, he refused to pick up my call, but picked it up when I continued calling. I asked if we could meet so we could talk, but he told me he was busy and didn't have time. I told him everything that had happened to me and that I was homeless and needed a place to stay urgently. He told me he wasn't in town, I asked if I could go to his house, and he said that his girlfriend was around. That was another huge shocker for me. He told me he has a girlfriend now and that I should move on with my life. He told me he was only having fun with me and that it was nothing serious. Nathan went on to tell me how he once met Derek at a bar, and they were gossiping about women and how they cheated. According to him, Derek had been singing my praises, that he knows I can never cheat on him, and that he trusts me with his life. So, he decided to experiment and see if what Derek was saying was true, and unfortunately, I fell easily for his tricks. Guys, listening to Nathan made me realize how loose I was. I felt dirty at that instant and asked myself how I allowed myself to fall for his cheap tricks. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't forgive myself for the mistake I made. I was so mad at myself that I fell into depression. Nothing made sense to me again. I couldn't even reach Derek so I could apologize for breaking his trust and causing him pain. I decided to pick up what was left of my life. I went back to my parents' house in Chicago, where I joined my mom in her store. The news of my infidelity soon spread like wildfire across the town. Life never made sense to me again. Can you guys imagine that a few months ago, I was living like a queen in a big palace, and now I'm back in a small town where I have to depend on my parents for everything? I couldn't even afford to buy myself things as little as underwear. My life became a horror movie from the day I had an affair with my husband's friend. The lust was never worth it, and it would never be worth what I lost. I regret everything, but it's too late now, and I know it. I wish I never went out shopping for groceries on that fateful day. I wish I never met Nathan or even fell for his tricks. That was how I ruined my marriage and life. That's my story, guys. I hope we all learn to be faithful to our partners, and most importantly, we should never bite the hand that feeds us. I guess everyone knows this except me. Thanks and goodbye. Nothing is ever as it seems, and I think I'm the perfect definition of that. I don't even think there'll be a single person in my comment section who's going to be on my side. I'm doing something that I know no one will support, but I just can't stop. I've come this far to get something, and I don't want to lose the opportunity to have it. Maybe I'm the perfect definition of what people call a gold digger, and I think I'll not stop being one anytime soon. I'm desperate, and that's what made me get married to my husband in the first place. My name is Michelle, and I'm a 31-year-old woman who works at a fashion store. I live in Los Angeles, California, and I only moved here after getting married to my husband. I am married to Simon, a 40-year-old realtor agent, and we have been married for approximately 2 years now. I come from a very poor background, and I have struggled to feed my whole life. Nothing ever came to me without paying a price, and that's how I landed a realtor agent as a husband. I sound like a fool, and to be honest, I think I am one. But if being a fool would make me survive in this cruel world, there's nothing I'll not do to survive. I didn't just meet Simon and get married to him. I literally had to pay a price to be with him. It's like the same situation with how I've struggled in life. It's a trade by batter situation. I'm not claiming to be a good person because I know that I am far from it. I am an opportunist who has tried her best to climb her way up. There's nothing good and innocent about me. When I first met Simon, he had a girlfriend. I just met him because he came to the town where I used to live with some of his friends on a camping trip. I know one of the people who works close to the place they visited to camp, so it was very easy for me to meet him. I didn't attend college by then. I was supposed to have finished college, but I was still a high school graduate who worked several jobs to earn. When I heard that a group of rich guys were visiting, I decided to grab the opportunity. What better way to get rich than marry rich? I didn't even pay attention to Simon at first because he was the least attractive of all the guys present. He had a dorky look with unkempt beards. He is also the oldest of the group, so I never wanted to go for him. One of his friends looked white attractive, so I decided to go after him. I started visiting the camping site almost every day, but none of them seemed to notice me. I also discovered that they were all married except Simon. I wasn't surprised because he wasn't someone I'd go for on a regular day. But I was desperate and decided to make a move. Long story short, I was able to befriend him and get his phone number. Unfortunately, they went back to LA almost 1 week later. I still had his phone number, but I was no longer interested till I was told that he is a realtor agent. That made me more determined, and I started calling him every day. I still have a lot to say, so I'll cut the story short. He hooked a flight for me after 2 months of talking online, and then I visited him in Los Angeles. We started dating for a while, and then I introduced him to my brothers after he followed me back to my town. Like I said, he's 40 years old and seemed desperate to get married. After just 6 months of dating, he proposed after meeting my whole family. I agreed on the condition that he found me a job in New York. He agreed and also gave me a condition before we had any children. He said we could only have children after we lasted 4 years of marriage. I didn't get why he wanted that, but I agreed because, like I said, I was desperate. One weird thing Simon did before we got married is that he made sure I took several tests to determine my blood group, genotype, and other medical terminologies I cannot seem to call. I know it's normal to test with each other, but his tests were extreme. But, like I said, I had no choice than to marry the old man. I'm not even sure he's 40. Maybe he's lying about his age. He looks 50. After getting married to Simon, I realized that the grass is not really greener on the other side. He'd met my whole family and had his opinions about all of them before marrying me. But I only met his sisters and uncles at the wedding. I didn't see his parents. I asked why, and he just told me that I shouldn't worry about it. Well, I realized that Simon and his parents are not on good terms, and all the aggression seemed to be thrown on me. 2 years ago, I was just a 29-year-old woman who just wanted to settle down. I wasn't ready for the burden of a family rivalry, but I had no choice because I was practically thrown into it. How would I describe Simon as a husband? Terrible. He has to be the worst husband any woman should want. That man is very selfish and self-centered. When I married him, I thought I'd be able to get a life of comfort and luxury. But I'm not getting any of that. He has the money, but he just chooses not to spend it. The only thing he has done for me since we got married is find me the job I asked for. I began to get extremely desperate because I just had limited resources. I realized that he just married me, so his parents would stop taunting him with his single life. I also wondered why he didn't marry some of his colleagues, but I've realized that it's because he wanted a girl like me who would agree to do anything just because of his title, a realtor agent. Like I said, I didn't graduate from college. In fact, I never even went to college. Simon is aware of that because I told him a miserable life story in the hopes that it would make him have compassion for me and marry me faster. Well, he did marry me, but not out of compassion. He married me because he wanted an uneducated wife like me that could sign her rights for money. Simon is out there living his life and traveling because he is in, quote, a realtor agent. We hardly sleep together because he wants to make sure I don't get pregnant. I used to wonder why he didn't like the idea of me getting pregnant, but I recently realized that it's because he doesn't want me to have a child with him now and then divorce him before asking for child support and spousal support. That's why he made it clear that I must not get pregnant till we lasted 4 years of marriage. He wants to stay married to Simon for 4 years? Me? I'm not ready to stay married to that man for 4 good years. I know he might divorce me after 4 years. His parents are another thorn in my flesh. They keep asking me why I don't have a college degree and why I'm not pregnant yet. Sometimes, his mother even asks me if her son hired me to be his wife. Let's get back to my so-called husband, Simon. That man has played with my intelligence, and I know it. The job he got for me is all I have. He doesn't listen to me when I ask for money. He just gives me a couple of dollars, and then that's all. Nothing else. So much for marrying a realtor agent. What's the difference? I got tired, and I knew that I had to do something fast. I told myself that there was nowhere in this life or next that I will let myself stay married to Simon for 4 years without having anything to show for it. There are more good-looking men out there, and I could have gotten married to them. But I chose him for a reason, and that's why I refused to take a back seat. I might not be a college graduate, but I believe that my instincts and intuition would take me far. Simon never ceases an opportunity to tell me how I would have never gotten a job if he didn't make his friend hire me without a college degree. I'm ready to show that man that I'll do something so great that even a multiple degree holder like him would never beat me. Update. Wow, I don't think I've ever seen so much hate in a comment section like I'm seeing in mine. What did I do wrong? I'm an opportunist, and I didn't deny that. I also didn't come here and pretend like I was a saint that fell from the sky. I know I'm wrong in certain things, but so is Simon. He's also an opportunist and a very greedy one at that. Why else would he get married to a high school graduate and then tell her he doesn't want children? We're both in the wrong boat together. The only difference is that I'm the one at the receiving end of it. Thankfully, few people supported my ideology, even though they didn't agree to some of the things I said. It's all fine, and I believe that one way or another, I'll be able to get to the finish line without support. If I want to get out of the marriage with something substantial, having a child is important, but so far, Simon has not wavered in his decision to not have children yet. I know he cheats on me because he is hardly ever home, and when it's time for us to get together, he uses protection a lot. He also gives me the pills immediately. I'm tired of the same routine, and I don't want him to outsmart me. I'm ready to have a child, and even though it's not going to be for Simon, so be it. That was the decision I made before I realized that there was every possibility that Simon would find out I had a child for another man. He's smart, and I know there's no way he'd not try to get a DNA test as soon as the child is born. I just decided to have fun and see where that takes me. I was tired of sitting around the house only to be disturbed by his parents and interviewed on every single topic while he lives his life under the pretext of work. I don't care if he's actually working. I'm tired of working once in a while and doing things continuously in a boring routine. I'm going to start pretending like I'm no longer a married woman because I need to have options left for when Simon suddenly wakes up and decides to divorce me. I don't want to go back to a life of striving. I've asked Simon to put me into college, but he's not ready to do that. He keeps coming up with several stupid excuses, and I am just tired. Nobody has time for that, and I'm certainly not going to trust a selfish man like him with my life. There's no way that's going to be possible. Update. Hi guys, it's time for an update, lol. I almost feel like I'm running a reality TV show because of how much information about my life that I'm putting out here. I guess I can't fault myself for asking advice and seeking the opinion of other people. Trust me when I say this, except a person was drunk or drugged, cheating is a conscious decision and it's something that's usually planned for months before its actual action. How do I know this? Well, I'm currently using myself as the test subject in this case, and I now understand a lot of things. I want to cheat on my husband. It's intentional, and I want to do it because Simon is one of the people who is making my life very difficult now. That man has tried his best to tie me down. I don't want to live that kind of life. I thought he'd put me into college the moment I accepted to marry him. I also want to go to school and be educated. If he is not ready to do that for me, shouldn't I look elsewhere? He married me with ulterior motives, just like I married him with ulterior motives. The both of us are to blame, but I don't think he even knows that yet. Just yesterday, he came back from work and he looked very tired. Like the dutiful wife Jay was forced to become, I prepared something for him to eat. Because most of the people in the comment section tried their best to make me look like a bad person. I decided that it would be nice if I tested Simon one more time. Deep down, I knew nothing would change, but I was easy to try, just because I wanted to prove you all wrong. Long story short, I asked him about enrolling me in college all over again. I know that he had the money, and I can bet a lot of things that he doesn't need to break his bank to send me to college. Why then did he want to limit the amount of things he gave me? Well, I realized that his reason for doing that is because he doesn't want to give me enough things so that I would not end up running away. Maybe he is aware that I might end up leaving him at the end of the day, so he is trying to make sure that he doesn't spend too much or risk too much. I'm sure that the both of us are playing a very risky game, and I just hope that neither of us is ready to back down. After talking to him and getting disappointed yesterday, I decided to make the conscious decision to just go straight to the point and do what I've always wanted to do. There's a person at my workplace that's trying to flirt with me, but I've never given that person a second look. One of my reasons for doing that is because that person is also my colleague at work. Why would I want to date my colleague? We earn the same thing and both of us are trying to survive. Why would I want to risk everything by dating someone like that? I wasn't ready to have that kind of conversation yet, so I decided that it was best to be wise. I wanted to make sure that whatever I'm risking my marriage for is better than my marriage. My marriage is already sham, and to be honest, I've wanted out of this marriage for months. I want to divorce Simon and go back to my town, because the only thing he has given me is a job and a roof over my head. Those are the only reasonable things he has given me all through the marriage. If I leave him today, there would be no difference because I had no idea I was getting married to a very stingy man. If I had known then, I would not have made the mistake of getting married to him in the first place. Now, about the person at my workplace, I think it's also risky because I could get caught if I am not careful. Simon gave me that job through his friend who knows the owner of the fashion store. There's every possibility that he has been trying to keep an eye on me, and it would be really unfortunate if I let myself right into his trap. That would give him a reason to divorce me without a single thought, and I don't want that yet. I'm only holding on to the marriage because I want to make sure that I didn't waste the past 2 years of my life. I don't want a situation where I'll end up leaving the marriage broke. It would make me really upset if I leave the marriage without anything at the end of the day. I didn't marry a realtor agent that was about 9 years older than me just to be treated like crap. That was not in my bingo card at all. That's why I'm making sure that I calculate my every love and never fall into a trap. It would be unfortunate for me to realize that in the process of trying to outsmart Simon, I ended up putting myself and everything I've endured at risk. I would hate myself for that, and I don't want that at all. So I'm just here, guys. I'm waiting for that rich man that would finally get interested in me. I don't plan on waiting forever because my patience is very low and I don't want to waste my life away. That's it for today, guys. I'll see you all in a while. Update. Your favorite gold digger is back again. Just like you all like to address me in the comments section. Many people think I'm this big gold digger with no brain at all. Well, I don't actually blame the people calling me that because it was I myself that called myself a gold digger in the first place. I'm now getting called several names. It's not like I never expected it, but wow, people can be extremely rude when they want to. It's the way they don't even care about my feelings or how I ended up feeling at the end of the day. Well, I guess my feelings aren't valid as long as I'm a gold digger, lol. Before moving on, I just want to say that the comments have been cracking me up quite literally. It's been insane. So, life with Simon has been the same and there's been no change at all. I knew that I'd be a fool to think that a man as smart as him would suddenly try to act all sweet and stuff. I think the past few days have revealed to me that Simon is actually a very intelligent man. I think he is aware that he married a woman that only looked at him twice because of his job and money. He knows that. And I guess that's one of the reasons he's making sure that we don't have a child till we're A or two last 2 more years. If not for my desperation back then, I would have never actually married him because I didn't know that I was signing up for this. I expected more from him, and I thought that I'd caught a big fish, lol. So Simon traveled just 2 days ago for one of his job trips. He's a realtor agent, so he naturally has to travel to do his work. Before, I used to get white angry that he always traveled and left me at home. Before we got married, I asked him if his job required him to travel a lot, and he denied it. In fact, he told me that he wouldn't even travel up to 10 times a year. He played me in that regard because now I know that he travels up to 10 times a month, and I don't get why he never told me that ahead of time. But when he traveled this time, I was actually very happy because I'd been hoping he'd travel and just leave me at home. When he left, Anne had a glass of champagne to celebrate, because anytime he was at the house, I literally had to trample on eggshells and act like a whole different person because I didn't want to raise any suspicions. My brothers came to LA last week, and they've been asking to see me, but I kept telling them that I was not in town. The main reason I did that was because I didn't want them to see Simon. Not because I want them to hate him, but because I know Simon doesn't care for any of them. He made that clear even before we got married. He clearly told me that he feels like my brothers are lazy and that they just spend all their time at the camping site doing nothing serious. I didn't say anything to him because I knew that he had no clue what kind of work my brothers have done just to survive. It's easy for a person like him with so much money to think that life is just all about traveling as a realtor agent. My brothers were the ones taking care of me for a very long time, even though they didn't attend college too. Our parents didn't have money to send us to college, so we just lived life like that. At some point in our lives, we were the ones that began to provide for our parents. Do I hold any grudges? Not at all, because I know that they tried the best to provide for us. It's just that life isn't easy for everybody. I know that Simon would not hesitate to say something that would bring my brothers down mentally, and that's why I think it's best that they avoid each other. I didn't want Simon anywhere near my brothers, and I don't want my brothers anywhere near Simon. I feel like life would be extremely easier if we just followed this protocol. So, I met up with my brothers today, and we talked a lot. I asked why they were in LA, and they just told me that it was for some work. I was happy to know that my brothers were doing well for themselves. They had to live today, so our conversations were quite short. They picked up on my mood, even though I tried to smile all through. I just lied and told them I was having period cramps. They knew nothing about that, so they believed me. When I got back home, I decided that it was best to update you all first before I made my next move. One of my brother's friends in LA invited me to his house party, and I actually plan on going. What do you guys think? I know this is the perfect opportunity to meet people and do. I'm really interested in grabbing the opportunity. I'm not going to update fast, like I've been going, because I think it's best to just update you all at once. I'll update as soon as I can, but it's not going to be as fast as the rest. Update. I cheated on my husband, guys, and now I think I might be pregnant. Yes, you all read that right. Where do I even start from, and how do I begin to explain my predicament to you guys? It's been hectic and quite confusing, especially for me. I thought things would be easier and I would not take myself by surprise since I'm the one actually planning everything and it's not a freestyle. But I think I underestimated how fast things could change in the blink of an eye. It's actually very crazy and I can't wait to tell you all my predicament right now. So I went to the party I was invited to, just like I told you guys. I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to do something crazy, so I didn't think twice before doing what I wanted to do. The party was not what I expected at all. I thought it was going to be a wild house party with several drinks and an unhealthy amount of snacks. Well, it wasn't that way at all, and it really surprised me. I think one of the reasons I was so gasped up for that party, because it was one of my brother's friends that invited me, and I knew him from our town before. He was quite wild and very dramatic, so I expected his party to get that way, but unfortunately for me, that was not the case at all. I think it's fair to say that I got the shock of my life when I realized that his part was quite classy and sophisticated. I was not impressed at all, because I wasn't really interested in a party that didn't have crazy drinks and an enormous amount of food. I wanted to let loose and just travel back in time to the days when I used to party with my brothers in our town. It was really fun, and I missed those parties. Since I came to LA, there were no more parties like that I could attend because Simon was like a watchdog that fell from the sky just to keep an eye on me. Anyways, I still wanted to have fun at the party, so I didn't let anything make me stop. I didn't see the person that invited me for some time, so I just decided to look around and take a look at things for myself. That was just what I wanted to do at the beginning. But something stalking happened, and I actually met a guy that looked like money. When I tell you all he looked like money, I'm not exaggerating. His suit and everything he wore screamed money. But I didn't quite understand why a guy like that would want to wear a suit to a house party. I mean, who wants to wear a suit to a house party? Is that even normal at all? Well, I guess it is because he was not the only one I spotted in a suit. They all looked like people who knew what they were doing with their lives. The music was very slow, and I think it was opera music that was playing in the background. It was nothing extra like that kind of music that just makes your eardrum throb. It was at that moment that I figured out that I was probably at a party for rich men. I became curious because I wanted to ask the person that invited me how he knew so many rich people. When I finally saw him and I asked him the question that had been eating me up, he just told me that he had gotten a job that pays well after he moved to LA, and that's how he got to buy a house. He also told me that most of the people present were his colleagues at work. That was what finally put me at ease because I'd been worried that he was running some kind of scam, lol. The guy I told you all about didn't interact with other people much. He just stood at one place, sipping champagne and looking at some of the artworks on the wall. I approached and engaged him in a conversation. I was very nervous at first because I didn't want to end up embarrassing myself in front of so many people. That's why I initially tried to see if I could just start a random conversation without causing commotion. It actually worked, and then we started talking. At first I started flirting with him, then pretended like it was the fault of the wine I had in hand. We spoke for a long time, and at some point we exchanged contacts. I took a lot of wine and the little alcohol available because I needed that drunk courage. It had been a long while since I tried doing what I had been doing at the party, so I was very anxious at first. At the end of the day, we left the party together. My brother's friend actually pulled me to the side to ask me why I was going out of the party room with a guy. He was aware of the fact that I am married, so he wanted to know what I was thinking. I just told him that it was nothing serious and that I'd speak to him another time. I could tell that he was really worried and he offered to call my brothers, but I refused. He left me alone after that, and then I went back to meet the guy. We went to a hotel that night and we spent the night together. I didn't expect to feel the level of guilt I felt the next morning. I guess I'm human after all, and I had to feel some type of way. We did use protection that night, and I was sure of it because I saw it in the bin. Me and that guy saw each other very frequently after that, and we hooked up a lot. I don't want to call his name for personal reasons. He gave me gifts and even offered to find a job for me. At that point, he didn't even know I was married at all. Simon seemed to spend forever on his trip, so I used that opportunity to hang out with the guy I met at the party. There were some times when he wouldn't use protection, but I didn't think that if suddenly just got pregnant. I always imagined that people had to actually put in effort and try before getting pregnant. I just realized that's not true and that every woman has a different body type. I suspect that I might be pregnant because I didn't see my monthly flow this month. Simon just got back yesterday, and I'm really scared. I don't know what to do at all because this isn't in my bingo card. What do I say to Simon and what do I say to the guy I'm pregnant for? Would he believe that the baby I'm carrying is his when he finds out that I'm married? Help me, guys. I haven't taken a pregnancy test yet, so I'm not 100% sure, but I'm still scared. I haven't missed my menstrual flow like this ever before, and it makes sense that I'm pregnant. That's the only reasonable explanation. I think I'm really done for at this point. Update. Well, my fears have proven to be reality, and I am now left with nothing. Even after all the things I tried to do to make sure that I didn't end up like I ended up now, I still got what many people think I deserved. I took the pregnancy test because I was actually very scared, and I wanted to know the truth as soon as possible. The tests revealed that I was pregnant. I still went to the hospital to check, and I was proved to be pregnant. I had to go back home and think of what to do. I decided to go tell my affair partner first. He was surprised that I was pregnant, and he was also surprised that I was married. He accused me of trying to trap him with another woman's pregnancy, and then he broke things off with me. Yes, he literally told me it was over and that he never wanted to see me again. I almost fainted and gave up, but I had to tell myself that I couldn't just let something like that weigh me down. I left his place after getting rejected. He didn't even listen to me after I begged him continuously. Janeyard just sent me away just like that, and I had no choice than to leave. I went home, and I gave Simon the pregnancy test results. I told him I was pregnant, and then he laughed straight into my face. He told me there was no way that was possible, and I asked him how he could be so sure. I consistently told him that I was pregnant, and yet he told me I had to be lying or he was not the father. I didn't even try to back down. I refused to back down and let him win. I challenged him and asked him to prove why he was not the father when I was married to him, and we slept together like couples did. He told me he always used protection, and I asked him why that gave him so much assurance when protection was not 100% reliable sometimes, and there was a possibility of the protection tearing up. I called him a simp for thinking he could bully me into rejecting a pregnancy that was his. I said he had to be stupid if he thought he could deny the pregnancy. I called him all sorts of names, and I said he wasn't even man enough to accept his own child, and that he was scared of taking responsibility. That was the first time I raised my voice at him, and it was initially because I had a lot of pent-up anger and wanted to vent. I thought those harsh words would soften him up and make him accept the pregnancy. But instead, I was shocked by his reply. He told me that the pregnancy couldn't be his because he had gotten a vasectomy long ago, and that he did so because he didn't want me to come up with stories that were fake. I was very surprised, and it was at that moment that I realized that I had been caught red-handed, and there was really no going back. I should have pinned the pregnancy on him when I knew just how smart he was. I asked him why he always used protection when he knew he had a vasectomy, and then he told me he wanted to have 2 backups. That same day, he sent me out of the house, and I was served with divorce papers 2 weeks later. I signed it without a second thought because I knew that there was no way I could drag it out. The divorce can only be finalized after I give birth and he's proven to not be the father. His parental rights would be revoked and he will not need to pay for child support. That's just how smart Simon is. Update. I can't believe it's almost been a year already. Since I was busy pregnant, I didn't have a lot of time to process things. I gave birth 2 months ago to a baby girl, and the DNA tests were conducted. He was proven to not be the father and his parental rights were revoked. He doesn't owe me child support anymore. Even after everything I did, I was still left with nothing in the long run. I tried looking for my affair partner again, but he has made it impossible to reach him. I'm now a broke single mother with 2 mouths to feed. Karma did hit me hard, and Simon left me with nothing. The only money I have now is the money from the savings I got from the fashion store. I got fired, by the way. Simon made sure he didn't let me go just like that. I guess the gold digger is now left with no gold to dig. I feel like I got what was coming for me. There's no way I can pin this on another person, even though I hold some grudges. You win some and you lose some.